My question for you, what do you think makes it okay to watch something that has roots in its ideas in like an occult?
Yeah, where do you draw the line?
Proverbs, the book of Proverbs talks a lot about the company you keep and how
Mm-hmm.
your friends shape you. And so I know that our grandfather would always give this advice when it comes to entertainment of thinking about how it's forming you.
Oh yeah, those are your friends.
Yeah, these are your friends. If you spend a lot of time with this character in these stories, you're forming yourself, you're habituating yourself to certain things. And so the question is this incorporated into the story in a way that habituates me negatively?
Haven't seen the violence inherent in the system! Help! Help! I'm being repressed! Bloody peasant! Oh, what a giveaway! Did you hear that? Did you hear that, eh? That's what I'm on about. Did you see him repressing me? You saw it, didn't you?
Welcome to Help We're Being Repressed.
Huzzah.
We have the most special of guests today,
Welcome, Rory.
the illustrious older brother, to
The
talk
one
about
and only.
magic.
Thank you.
Because this is a requested topic. Is recently someone flagged in our comment section that they had never read the Terry Pratchett witch series because witches when
Oh, no.
when they were young. Because oh no, witches bad. And then asked us to talk about magic because it is true that when you read the Bible, witches, they aren't a good thing.
No.
So
Thou shalt
When you're-
not suffer a witch to live,
thanks for
Thanks,
that,
as
Rory.
the good book says.
Uh, so obviously, witches don't necessarily mean the same thing in all cultures and contexts that they meant in the Bible. But it is a question of like, okay, what magic is appropriate and good for a Christian to consume? Because obviously I do consume things with magic in them all the time. So
And
I
is
just get in the game
Lucia
with this
being
one.
moral? That's our new
Yes.
question. Rory's here
is
with
Lucia
his
being moral.
Rory is here with a historical perspective on the
Yeah.
nature of magic.
So I told Rory that between the two of us, we have an expert with all my fantasy reading and his actual knowledge.
And my emotional support.
Yeah, Ameera's included. Anywho. So let's
I am
let's
pretty
figure
ignorant
this out.
on magic and fantasy, I have to say.
Yes, we know this
This
about
is
you.
why you need me to make you an expert on the topic.
But you know more about the history of it than either of us. So
I know the vibes.
that is not.
So,
that.
anywho, to kick it off, I'd just like to say to not over broad brush just condemnations for magic, the supernatural, and such like, which I've seen a lot of Christians do. Because there's a lot of Christians that go like, Harry Potter, evil of the devil, but the same people will be like 100 cupboards, evil of the devil, because magic. And it's like, well, the Bible does have wizard battles where there are good guys. One main one, obviously.
It's like she's talking about Moses. If you don't catch the reference of the wizard, but
yeah, so what is magic? Rory, do you want to try to define this slippery term for us?
Magic. Yeah, it's actually really notoriously difficult to define, and you kind of have to take it contextually when you're looking at historical sources. Sort of like the term superstition. You've got this like cluster of concepts that are often are always evolving depending on what people see as rational, what people see as acceptable. And so you have things reclassified over time as magic versus non-magic. But now it seems like people intuitively think of it as just some sort of wish fulfillment
Yeah, bibbity
thing.
boppity boo.
Bibbity bobbity boo stuff happens. And that's ultimately a bastardization of the idea of the occult, but in like a very etymological sense, occult meaning hidden. Because occult, like if you look at the scientific revolution, people had the concept of natural magic, which was not one that necessarily invoked spirits, the devil, anything like that. All it meant was that there were causal structures that were unknown to man, but we still found ways to manipulate them. Like magnets. So people would have seen magnets as natural magic in like the 1600s.
because you didn't understand it.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
it's
and then there's a
occult. It's
question of
hidden.
does it, like, you define that as magic, and then later you figure out how it works. Does that make it not magic? It's
Yeah,
like if it
basically.
doesn't defy natural order.
If it isn't beyond our understanding. Well, I mean, that
But
means when you're...
descriptively, yes, it has made it not magic anymore.
Mhm.
People just are like,
Yeah.
okay, they put it into a different box in their heads.
So when you go
Yes.
back and you're like, okay, the Bible condemns magic, it's like, okay, what does that even
So
mean?
what's the magic of the Bible?
Or what's
and
the
I
evil
think-
type? You know?
I think the magic of the Bible, and this is something that can be used in fiction fantasy pretty easily as kind of the cleanest cut version of magic, which is magic is a human appealing to a higher authority to defy some visible law of nature, which would be witches are condemned because they're appealing to a demon. So like a demon or spirit in order to challenge this
A natural
fundamental law
law.
of nature. So you have the magicians of Egypt, which they actually succeeded in their magic. They weren't like, I love Prince of Egypt to the ends of the earth, but my little Christian child self was like kind of offended by the fact that it was shown to be like sleight of hand and fake. Like, according to the Bible, the magicians did succeed in some of the miracles. Like, they're appealing to their demons, and they had results. And then they face Moses, and Moses is appealing to the highest authority to also do the same thing. But the difference between it is, are you appealing to the right authority? Who are you getting your power from?
Basically, nobody, like, in the theological tradition would have been comfortable speaking of, well, it actually depends. They're of the divine as magic.
Well, yeah, but
invoke
there's
the power
a
of God.
difference. Yeah,
Sure.
but I'm
No,
just saying,
some
put
would.
yourself. But
We are playing
the
with
Bible,
definitions
the
here,
Bible
so.
gives us
Sure.
a bit of a zoomed out situation where we have more information than people would have at the time. In some ways,
Basically,
where you're like,
today,
this is
if-
coming from God.
yeah.
But versus if you just saw Elijah, I mix up Judd and Shah all the time, and he just raises a kid from the dead. Everyone like watching that is like, that was an act of like magic, quote unquote. It's just that his authority comes from God. And I don't really like calling it magic either. The point is that is some, but that's just because
I
of the
disagree
connotations.
people would necessarily perceive it as magic. Because
Do you think they
I don't
perceived
think
Moses
a
as
miracle, I don't think a
as
miracle
magic?
is the same as magic. No,
Sure, okay,
because
let's-
magic implies some sort of manipulation of the world to get your end,
So let's go to the
as
wizard,
opposed to
Moses.
God just does something for you.
Rory, so like
yeah,
Moses,
then we have the wizard battle of Moses.
Moses turning the stick to a snake. I think if you separate that from context, if you see someone turn a stick into a snake, I think we're gonna think magic, right?
Well, it's supernatural at least.
Yeah, so that's basically all she's saying, is that there's conceptually we can work with two different types of miracles, magic, things that undermine the natural order of things, right? And one would be using a demonic authority and one would be using a divine authority. We are
And
just
so, yes,
labeling
they're
it
not
with
the
the
same
heading.
category.
Yes, we're labeling it with the heading of magic generally, just to discuss the difference between how you are undermining the natural law.
And
Does that make
like I was
sense?
saying, I'm more citing it as something that you could use to build your own blatantly Christian magic system.
To build a system
Yeah.
versus like necessarily
so
what actually
in
The
the
tricky
Bible,
thing with
in the
demons,
Bible, let
they
me
can't
finish.
subvert nature.
He won't let me finish.
true.
Rory, they also
Conceptually.
turn sticks to snakes.
But they would have had to have been using.
Yeah,
like-
I know.
They
There's-
can't. They actually, if they're causing something, they're causing it by their own powers, which are part of nature. As natural creatures.
I don't-
Thank
Rory-
you, Rory, for being really helpful.
They are.
You're
we-
taking us
It's
a
different
little too...
than
Shush.
supernatural
Rory,
intervention.
Rory.
It's gonna look
does
like
it make
it.
Does it make it better if I say that magic is natural and we roll from there? Because I don't think that there is anything ever that goes on that is truly outside, like supernatural, outside of the
Here's
created
the thing.
world that God.
I
put together.
take back my term natural world. I will say the normal state of things, undermining the normal
The
state. What we are accustomed to seeing. How's that?
See, this is the fun thing about having Rory on. Is normally Ameera and I can just say stuff, and Rory is like, be precise.
I'm like, no.
No,
It's
because
like,
you have
I'm just like-
entire
No, because
a
Ameera
thousand
and
years
I,
of history of people using
Shush.
terms like supernatural, preternatural.
But
all
like
this
you
stuff.
said,
We work
but
by
like
our own
you
definition.
Said, you claimed that supernatural is a case of genuinely not knowing how it means and how it happens, and if you know how it works, then it's not magic. So I'm saying if there's nothing that there is actually no way of knowing how it works theoretically.
So actually, yeah, if you're working by like, oh, if you know how it works, it's not magic, which I get when people like historically were like, oh, magnets are magic. Figure out the science behind them. Never mind. They're not. They're, just science.
Psych. They're
Psych.
just little presents from
But then
God.
when you're building a magic system, if you do a really like robust, complex thing, but you describe it and it's
you make
kind
it
of
make sense.
then you're like, okay, do we still call it magic because there's a system and we understand how it works?
It is still a magic system.
In the literary world, yes.
Yeah,
You're
in the
calling it
literary
magic.
world,
But
I
rolling
think
back-
it's more of an aesthetic than an
So yes,
actual.
just know that
See,
right now
that'll be a
we are blending the definitions, kind of, because we're also talking about the
Yeah.
literary. So that's kind of where our minds are at when we're talking about magic.
Yeah.
So what I was saying, though, rounding back to what I was saying about thinking of the wizard battle as magic of the Bible and the different miracles, as it's like God was working through a man in a number of these cases, a human, and they're getting their authority from up high. Sure, I wouldn't use magic loosely to describe things going on in the Bible, but you can pull from that to make a magic system where you're like an example of a good magic system is just the question, where is your power from? So look at 100 Cupboards, where you're like Hermione versus Henry. Where does your power come from? The Witch of Endor, she's pulling her power from demons that they have bound into her blood. And Henry's is a direct gift from his creator. So it's not a miracle in the sense that he says, God, please, and God says, yeah, sure. It's not like quite that, but it is a natural thing gifted to him directly from his creator. And that right there is a basic system of good and evil magic.
Yeah, and I think I've talked to both of you guys before about this, how, like, in literature, in fantasy, in film, a lot of these magic systems are just like they're a preserved, like, imaginary from previously. Like, so a lot of magic that people depict in shows or whatever is actually just like a inflated version of alchemy, for example, or other stuff that people actually thought was a scientific research program, like back in the day, and people have discarded.
But was really superstitious and stuff.
Was like actually just was wrong about a lot of stuff, and so but then it's retained in literature and in art as an aesthetic. And so the thing about a fantasy like magic system, what it actually means is we are stipulating that this actually is the science of this world.
Yeah. See,
and we call it magic because that's how it registers in our world, because this wouldn't
deserves
work.
A comment. Because this is just, when we're talking, can Christians read magic books? I think that is actually a separate category, which is the science magic. So things that are like, they do not pull in any kind of spiritual or religious aspect.
Yes,
it's just a scientific system that's an aesthetic.
That's fake.
I would not include Rory. Like, so we were talking before we started the podcast about voodoo. I don't think that would be included.
Because who doesn't talk about voodoo?
I don't think that would be included in like a scientific type of magic necessarily, because that's demonic, right? So it's like if I have a little doll of you and I stab it and I'm calling on demonic powers to like kill the person that's just stabbed.
But also
it's a different thing.
Relies on, even if it's not calling a demon, it relies on spiritual connections.
Yes.
So the doll I made of you has a spiritual resonance to your physical body.
Versus a more like alchemy vibe that's going with the lead to gold. Can we do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there can be very, very scientific magics, which, like you said, it's just a world in which this is a normal.
I'm trying to think of a good example of that.
Right, like, and Freerin, kind of, was one of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, that's one where it's, the magic in Freerin is just a base aspect of the world that you could study like any other science. And there's like theory and breakdowns and different things. So it's like there's nothing supernatural about it.
It just
It's
is
just-
the state.
Yeah, it is just another topic you could study.
That
A
seems
state of
pretty
the world.
standard in a lot of fantasy. Like that's kind of how magic is in the Lord
In
of the
some,
Rings.
yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
percentage. Lord of
Would
the
you-
Rings
okay, would
definitely
you-
has a strong religious aspect in the magic that is missing
Well-
in Free
Yes,
Run.
to be honest, I think that is a type of magic. So when you're talking about, this is
Well,
going back to the question of whether
okay.
you can read it. That's one that I am like kind of completely fine with. Because like Rory was talking about, it's just a science. It's just like, imagine this was the
A
state
science
of the
we
world.
don't have.
Yes. So it's not like, oh, we're calling on like all these scary powers. It's just, okay, hypothetically, what if we had a different way of understanding the world?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, a different system.
So
It's a little
you
blurry.
might, yes.
Because some like past systems, like if you go to the ancient world, a bunch of ancient Platonists, like Porphyry and other people,
love the
thought that you
Platonists.
could invoke angelic daimons, demons, or
Don't do that,
angels,
people.
and invoke the divine and basically channel divine power through incantations.
So that might
So-
not count as a science.
So they thought that was the scientific way the world worked, was that you could harness the power of spirits.
But yeah,
and,
but that
and
falls
God.
that falls in the category of magic as an invoking of a higher being.
Exactly. I'm
channel
just
their
saying
power,
it's
but-
actually blurry. This
No, you're right.
boundary
Yeah, I would
It's
say-
slightly blurry.
To compare Lord of the Rings and Free Run in terms of the magic system is because I do think that Lord of the Rings is a little less like the just state of the world, is because in Free Run's the world of Free Run, it's a system that functions entirely on its own, and there's not a perverted version of it. There's not really a good and a bad. It is just a function.
It's just how you use it.
Yeah, so that's where this category isn't all of fantasy, because a lot of fantasy leans in towards the dualistic magic, the good and the evil magic. And Free Run is an example of one where it is purely just a function of nature, which means when the demons use it, it's the exact same function of nature, even if the demons are inherently evil in that world.
Yeah.
It's still just the same function of nature that our good guys are using. Versus Lord of the Rings, where it is a function of nature, but it's a function of nature tied to religion, shown by the fact that it can be perverted. So Sauron's magic is evil. Saruman's magic turns evil. And there's actually like a twisting of it, which I would say is more real to our world in the hypothetical, is the fact that aspects of nature can be perverted and twisted and fallen. And that's more the Lord of the Rings one.
Where would you
the
think?
former might be actually more realistic?
Well,
And just how you use it?
but
Yeah.
it depends, because gravity just stays like gravity, right? So if
Yes.
you're talking laws of nature like that.
Sure.
But then Rory's like, I won't argue on that front.
Y'all have
I at
common
least-
ground here.
I
Nailed
at
it.
least have never found gravity to not work.
Especially on you.
In my experience. But then if you look towards like the animal kingdom and the nature of animals, which is like a living, more organic laws of nature, you will see fallen aspects and perversion and darkness. So it's a question of what kind of natural magic are we doing? Are we doing an organic natural magic or a pure cold science natural magic? You know?
Where do
Yeah,
you think?
because clearly, yeah, sorry, Ameera.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask. So I was like, okay, that like Harry Potter type of magic, because I know that one of the big books
Great, let's do
that
that
people
one.
do bring up is Harry Potter. Shockingly, because it's one of the
Oh,
most
the devil!
one of the most successful magic books ever, series ever. And they're making a new show version, I
Ugh.
think.
Why
Okay.
is Adam Driver not Snape? I don't know.
We can discuss that another time. A whole episode dedicated to Adam Driver just for Lucia.
Shush.
But it's like,
Okay,
okay,
so-
is this, I think in some ways, it might fall under like the scientific heading because it's just a system that some people can use. And there's no necessarily distinction between how the good people use it and the bad people use it.
Well, even their like
But they-
forbidden spells, all your good guys are throwing them around in the last book.
Yeah. So it's not
Well, that Harry Potter leads me to break another couple categories out. For can Christians read magic books? I'm like, I think that there are magic systems that are reflective of the world. So I think Lord of the Rings, Tolkien is obviously master world builder. I think he aims to have his world resonate with our real world. And I think it honors Christianity. So there's magic systems that are in line with Christianity, but then there are magic systems that are pretty neutral. So like the science ones, it's not like I'm like, wow, how God honoring. But it's like, no, I have no beef at all with the scientific alchemical magic systems. And then you've got just badly done magic systems. And then you've got like actually anti-Christian.
so badly
magic
done. I
systems.
feel like might fall under the
We're
category of
Harry
bibbity
Potter.
bobbity boo. So
Yeah, badly done is just
are we all
poof.
going to say no Cinderella allowed?
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
one of the things
fantastic
that
magic system of Cinderella.
It's just the like, oh, wave the wand, make it happen.
yeah, the sort of like no effort, no sacrifice, no nothing, like nothing went into this. Because one of the benefits of like alchemical things is there's always ingredients, right? So you've got that trade-off. You've got other magic systems where it's like it's really difficult. It took years
Laws
of
of
study, all
equivalent
this, and like,
exchange.
yeah. But the bibbity boppity boo stuff where there's like nothing. It's just it worked or it didn't.
To be honest, I think
Like
it's
the fact that Expelliarmus defeated Voldemort
spoiler.
when that was
gosh.
the first spell he learned dueling.
I do think
When he was,
that
like, a third year
it's
or
what
something.
a lot of people are going to think when they think magic is because we're like you said, it's the unexplained, so we don't know how it works.
Yeah, and like you'd mentioned,
So people
probably before the
often-
podcast, wish fulfillment.
Yes, I think people fall into the ditch a little bit of like, oh, then I don't have to explain it.
Yeah.
There doesn't have to be a reason for
Mm-hmm.
it, and I think Harry Potter, obviously, is extremely successful. But there's no real reason for the magic or explanation
No.
behind it. It's
Yeah.
just we can learn these phrases, often kind of Latin-esque.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Depending on
and
how
that's
you
not
say
even
it.
consistent with
And
how,
your high school spell beats the ancient wizard.
yeah,
What's in-
like any magic system that people have actually believed in followed some sort of laws.
Yeah.
Like
You're
they at
having to
least,
give something.
it may not have actually corresponded to reality, but there generally was some sort of internal logic to it.
Yeah.
Like to go back to the voodoo doll,
Yes.
there's a logic of this is similar to that, and like
Yeah.
affects like, and they'll
Mhm.
have this sort of like view, like, and this would often like go down through all their different spells and different cures for different diseases. There's going to be an internal logic to like, oh, this thing causes this physiological reaction which will work to help cure that disease.
Yeah. There has never, that I know of, been any magic system believed in history that is just bibbity bobbity boo.
Yeah, even like the closest is probably some sort of like new age, like mental manifesting.
Manifesting.
Vibes.
But even manifesting has a kind of logic to it. Is like you feel like if
Where?
it's the idea of the outside, the external will correspond to the internal.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Where you're like,
It's very,
if my
like,
mind
Thoreau
reaches, if my
Whitman.
mind
You're
reaches
like-
this state, it will automatically have an effect on external
Is it Whitman who's
things.
like,
So I'm like,
perception is
even
fatal?
that. Yeah, I think so.
Where it's like, okay, everything I think and I believe in, like, it actually creates the outside world versus the outside world
Yeah,
creating what's inside.
there's a philosophy to
Yes,
that.
so there is actually, like, a theory behind it.
It's also it's more plausible depending on somebody's prior assumptions about the nature of the world, the nature of consciousness.
Mhm.
So if you're some sort of like, you've got different philosophies where people think consciousness is fundamental, where like the world is illusory in various ways, it would make sense within that framework that
It's very
the
Matrix,
mind
you know?
could manipulate reality around it. Like that might be wrong, but it does have a very complex system behind why people even find it plausible. in many
But
cases.
Versus Leviosa.
Leviosa, not Leviosa.
So honestly,
But
Harry Potter.
is there anything morally wrong to reading or watching something with a poorly done magic system?
I mean,
No.
here's the thing. Harry Potter, I think, has other issues.
Yeah,
but when
we
it
can
comes to the
squabble about
magic,
that later.
yeah, it's not like my favorite series ever.
No.
But the magic system is not complex. It's very, very simple, and I don't think it's like evil. I just think it's kind of dumb.
Yeah,
Like,
and like if
it's-
you hypothetically have a kid that's like really weak to wish fulfillment, then maybe don't have them read really wish fulfillment-y things with wish fulfillment-y systems. But other than that, it's like it's not doing any harm.
Yeah. I will say where I do think people should not mess with magic of certain categories and
We should get
fantasy.
to the actual bad
yeah,
category.
like they're actually because obviously we
They
as
exist.
Christians believe in demons. We believe that Satan is a real being, that there's such a thing as evil forces in the world.
Mhm.
And as such, you shouldn't be reading things that desensitize you to
Yeah.
the concept of the demonic or desensitize you to concepts of prohibited activity. Like, because why, like, obviously, I think angels can do what they want. Demons are fallen angels, and as such, when they do things in the world, they're using probably their powers as an angelic being to affect the world around them.
Mhm.
What's bad about us interacting with them is that they have rebelled against God and they want our harm. They want to destroy the image of God. They want to blaspheme God. And so the fact that, oh, you can't invoke demons, that's a rule that God has given us for very good reason.
Yeah.
And
Because
as
demons are
such,
real, so
so that sort of trivializing of the occult, like the occult, like in the contemporary sense of like diabolical arts, devilish arts, as opposed to
would you include
natural
like
magic, just like hidden
fortune
principles
reading, like that sort of thing? Would that fall under that category? Do you think?
well, I think some of this stuff
I don't
Some
know
of
is
enough.
them,
like
yeah, not
people
all,
people
some.
actually do go to fortune tellers, like these sorts of there's lots of new age stuff, lots of occult stuff that actually just does exist in different communities. And as such, it's like Christians shouldn't normalize that and use things in their stories that would actually encourage people to possibly do it in real
Yeah.
life.
Hmm.
And
See,
so you shouldn't get your kids super excited to go to a fortune teller.
So honestly, that is something that even if we don't think that Harry Potter has like a corrupt magic system, even if it's just like dumb, there is a little bit to be aware of just like creating like a, I don't know, an emotional attachment to magic
and the magic
Yeah.
vibes.
and the magic vibes, because
It's
it
always
is
a
very
bad
much
sign if someone really, really likes a witchy aesthetic.
because it is just witches and wizards. It's very like, you know, we stir the cauldron.
The witchy
So it's
aesthetic,
not
I think,
like
is
it's-
actually damaging for a lot of people.
Yeah,
It
so it's like-
attracts them to
I wouldn't-
Wicca, to New Age.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't read Harry Potter like tons growing up, but I did read it at some point. Don't remember when. But definitely if you're maybe just the obsession with Harry Potter, it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, well, we
The
talked
magic
before about
aesthetic.
response value. It's like there's always objective value, technical value, response value. And as an individual reading things or as a parent with kids reading things, you always want to keep response value in mind. There might be something that other people could read or watch, but your kid or you have a certain reaction to it that's not super healthy, and you should be able to spot that and cut it off. But when it comes to magic systems that are anti-Christian, let's say like contrary, we would actually consider them contrary. In that, I think there is still the category of I read other things I disagree with. It's like, so what's so different? It's like I'll read a book by an atheist that's promoting nihilism, and I'll be like, I read it for so-and-so reason. It was well written or whatever. And I'm just being very conscious of what it is one thing. So there's a couple magic systems like that where I'm like, I think that it's good to be conscious of it. But then there's the ones where I'm like, don't touch that. And
Yeah.
I think the difference is, here's an example, is Jujutsu Kaisen. That magic system is contrary to my philosophy, how I view the world. the whole idea is that people spill out negative energy from like sadness, despair, fear, anger, and all of that builds up energy and becomes monsters. And the good guys are fighting them with the exact same thing. So it's like there's this fallen aspect of the world, this cursed energy, and the good guys are using the cursed energy against the bad guys that use cursed energy. And so I'm like, I don't consider that to be in alignment with how I view the world. You're not supposed to fight the dark with the dark, right? Do you guys agree or what? Are you just staring at me? You might be frozen again.
No, we're not frozen. I'm just thinking.
Why
about
are you
it.
not caring? Okay.
I was
I'm like,
considering.
you guys had froze earlier, so I was like, why are you just like
no, I was
so
just
still?
I was just
But I'm
wondering
just
if
saying
there's a particular philosophy that comes from, because I don't know enough about Eastern ideas to know.
I might be
Whether
My
that's
impression
Shinto.
is
Well, for one, they
that's
don't have
more
Rory
New
might know.
Age
Yeah, New Age.
yeah.
than Shinto.
Well,
Because
the thing
I
is,
forget the
part of
exact
the connection to Shinto
term.
is the fact that they don't have an inherently negative view of these demon spirits as much as we do with the Christian philosophy. It's just they're just in the world of the world. But yeah,
I mean,
so that,
some of the higher ones seem pretty like negatively portrayed.
yeah, but the
So-
fact that they don't. There's no comment on the fact that the sorcerers use cursed energy positively.
To
like that's
introduce a
But
term.
let me
Well,
finish real fast.
I want to hear the term.
Okay, he can do it in a second. I just wanted to say that even though
Hold on to
that
the thought, Rory.
philosophy is contrary to what I think, that's simply like an aspect of the world building. And it's that negativity is not like relished at all. Like you can even forget that that's the case, which is very different than books where it has the kind of negative, contrary magic system and we are reveling in it. So I'm like, one thing that comes to mind is We Ride Upon Sticks, which is a novel I read before because I had to for my Harvard extension class. That has kind of this dark magic thing going on, and it's incredibly relishing it. And that's something where I'm like, ugh, no, shoo, go away.
Yeah.
I don't need to consume that. So like when it's just a detail that I disagree with versus we are relishing this negative thing is different. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the term?
Well, first off, I just say things like just on a descriptive level that people tend to describe as magic in literature and entertainment. Almost all of them have like a very particular cultural genealogy where it came from. Like I mentioned before, there's alchemy. So there's all this alchemical stuff and then there's also, like I also referenced, the ancient traditions of like invocation, of learned magic from Platonism and that sort of stuff. So that is also a lineage of particular ideas about the supernatural. But things that probably are a lot more influential in people's aesthetics of magic are the recent movements from like the 19th century on of spiritualism and the occult revival in Victorian Britain and elsewhere, where you have certain ideas taken from Eastern philosophies and mixed with ideas from Western esotericism, so to speak, where you've got all these esoteric occult beliefs. So it's often like an amalgamation of previous things. So the term that Jujutsu Kaisen like describes the idea in Jujutsu Kaisen is an egregore, which is a concept in Western esotericism of a non-physical. I'm reading a definition here.
Yeah, I
Of a
noticed.
Yeah, we
non-physical
noticed.
entity or thought form that arises from the collective thoughts and emotions of a distinct group of individuals. Which the term egregore comes actually from the Greek word in the book of Enoch that's translated the Watchers.
Interesting.
But then it ultimately ended up being used in certain like esoteric Western traditions to reflect like a group mind or like collective
Interesting.
consciousness as it concentrates in some sort of entity. So it's like you look at something like that in Jujutsu Kaisen, it actually has a very particular genealogy
Yeah.
of people having an idea about how consciousness works as a group. And so the thing that I actually like, I do understand people being wary of some of this stuff.
I
Well,
think
yeah,
it's
like you
because
said,
some of these
you
people,
might
these
not want to numb
occultists,
yourself to it.
yes, these occultists, these esotericists, these spiritualists,
Shady
got
people.
lady like people like the Theosophy Society or the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. These are or some of the
I like how
different
many of these
branches
names you know.
of the
Right.
Masons. No, I know a guy who wrote a
Keep going.
dissertation. There's a guy I know a guy who wrote his dissertation here at Yale on the occult revival in Victorian Britain, of all these
Oh,
groups that were
okay.
founded in the late Victorian period to try, like often coming out of the Masons,
Checks out.
This
trying
is why
to
we invited you.
react. They were reacting against Darwinism and materialism of the scientists in the educated
See,
elite in Britain at the time to try to find anything spiritual. People were very eager to find, well, they were looking at ghost stories, at
yeah.
mediums. That's why like the seance became very popular in this
Yeah.
period, and why like people all over the Western world were hosting seances. And so these groups originated out of kind of the confluence of Masonic thought and spiritualism, and they often like have very dark things that go on. And Aleister Crowley, who founded the Church of Satan, I believe, came out of one of these things. So like literal Satanism and like weird sex stuff, abuse, like there's a lot of bad stuff that came out of these movements, and it's really the systems that undergird a lot of modern occult activity, modern witchcraft, different things where like, and you can even see it reflected in cults like Scientology.
Yeah.
So these things are very like, whether or not they actually have any reflection of how the world works in their systems, they are very much living ideas that deceive a lot of people. And
Yeah,
as
so how
such, I think there's a lot of like, I think magic in a broad sense, like I'm all for magical systems in fantasy and in literature, but I actually think like a Christian, if you have like if you're writing a book, it would be better to just use things that are not directly tied to
Well, you would want to be
occult
purposeful
movements.
when you're. Well, yeah, because I think.
yes. That
Yes.
seems fair.
Duh. It's like
But-
the ancient thing to avoid is any kind of just demons. That's always been a bad idea to like
No,
witches
Rory,
that just
Rory,
serve demons.
my question for you, because we obviously have watched JJK. We've watched some things. What do you think makes it okay to watch something that has like, roots in its ideas in like an occult?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think the line is?
Yeah, where do you draw the line?
Well, because we can look, there's tons of mythology that is, well, it's literal paganism, and there's tons of art that takes cues directly from ancient paganism. So, like, the fact that something's rooted in things that have bad elements
Sure.
does not necessarily, in and of itself, put it off.
Well, yeah, we have Till
Sure.
We Have Faces by Lewis.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
you're
if I
using the
could
story
say,
of like
Proverbs, the book of Proverbs talks a lot about the company you keep and how your friends shape you. And so I know that Papa, our grandfather, would always give this advice when it comes to entertainment, of thinking about how it's forming you, and
Well, yeah, those are your
and
friends.
think of it, yeah, these are your friends. If you spend a lot of time with this character in these stories, you're forming yourself, you're habituating yourself to certain things. And so the question is this incorporated into the story in a way that habituates me negatively?
Yeah.
And are there things that I ought not to be habituated to that it's habituating me to? Or is it simply something that's stripped out of its original context, and there's like a
Like you took
genealogy?
inspiration from something.
There's something that's being borrowed from for the story here, but it's not actually making me more vulnerable to the occult and
Yeah.
New Age. So I actually do think that kids should not grow up on witch stories as like
Yeah, overall. Yeah.
because even like the recent like valorization of the witch is largely a product of second wave feminism. as an
Yeah,
attempt
girl
to
boss.
subvert what was seen as like a patriarchal archetype,
Yeah.
like to enslave women. Andrea Dworkin, that like pretty radical feminist thinker, said that she wrote a book, I think, that called the old witch trials like a genocide, like a mass murder of women, and said that was basically just a concept to like systematize violence against women.
Hmm.
And so you have this like
Yeah.
feminist angle that has tried to reinvent the witch as this noble character, which in weird
See,
way, my professor actually pointed out the other day, this is kind of weird when you look at it's actually not a good thing to honor the memory of a lot of these people that did actually get killed in unjust witch trials, like in mass hysterias and this sort of thing, because often they weren't witches. If some
Which
old
is why
lady,
they should not have been killed.
if some old lady
which
was
is why we're
killed for
not
being a
getting into
witch,
honoring witches.
yeah, so like, oh yeah, I'm gonna honor her memory by like construing her as a witch fighting the patriarchy. It's like, well, that's not actually
Yeah.
honoring
I would
those
say,
people.
Yeah.
right, overall, when you're talking about don't want kids raised on witch stories, it's like, I would say
Not that
overwhelmingly,
post-feminist
yeah, no,
valorization.
overwhelmingly, I don't like quote unquote witch stories. It's a little different, like when you have full blown magic systems and maybe they use the term witch. It's very different than a witch story. And I think that you can, like, it's sometimes hard to define, but you can smell it. Like when we say the witchy, like the
I
girls
know it
are
when
like
I see
witchy
it.
aesthetic, it's like it has a feeling to it and it feels gunky. And
There's a difference
so
between
yes,
like
that
Kiki's
feminist
delivery service
yeah, Kiki's delivery service is just like
and some sort
this
of
cute
like
little like she can fly.
Yeah.
yeah. So
But,
there are gradations of this.
But yes, something that's really reveling in the like the dark witchy aesthetic is like gross. So rounding
Yeah.
back to
Just kind of steer clear
the
of
thing
that
that
stuff
the thing
mostly, I
that
think.
caused the question, which is the witches of Terry Pratchett.
Because we like
I would
Pratchett.
say his witches like aggressively diss the witchy aesthetic. Like it's actually a commonly mocked thing through his book is witches that are trying to be witchy.
His
He's
witches.
a satirical author.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he actually is satirizing this kind of unironic genre of witchy.
Yes.
Mhm.
And when he writes them
like-
more seriously, it's a very natural form of witchcraft,
so
I guess.
his magic system for his witches, his wizards are a very chaotic, over technical bibbity boppity boo. That he's like, I promise you, it's super complicated, and you wouldn't understand if I told you. Is kind of his wizards.
The orangutan librarian. from
Yeah,
Unseen
who
University.
refuses to
It's
be
like-
turned back.
It's a
But,
joke. It's not
yes,
like
it's a joke.
It's
But then the
satire.
witches,
Yeah.
the witches, like you said, he sometimes writes them a little more seriously, though he does have his satirical parts. It's very, very natural. It's just like a girl is born with eyes to see and a good head on her shoulders. And she takes that as responsibility to take care of people. Is kind of his witches.
a lot of
And
witching for
it's very
Pratchett
earthy.
is common sense.
Yep. It's like
and
they're the women with
practical
common
knowledge.
sense. Yeah. And he does aggressively satirize the witchy people.
Basically,
But-
like I might not like exactly how he might have chosen to incorporate witch elements into his stories. I have not found his stories particularly to
You're not a
be like a
big
a
Pratchett
dangerous. Well, no, I mean
No.
I haven't found his representations of witchcraft to be like subversive in like a bad way
No,
for Christians.
his if you
even
read
if
them,
there are things that exist that
yeah,
are
you might not
like
just
that.
you definitely are not going to agree with everything. He was a pagan. Like
Yeah,
like,
I've
you're
got
not-
edits. It's okay.
we got edits. However, when you read it, it's not going to make you want to join the occult
No.
or
In
anybody.
fact,
wants to
it'll
join the
make fun
occult.
of you for wanting
It
to
will
join the
probably make you
occult.
feel pretty stupid if you're part of the occult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would be so. I'm pretty fine with Pratchett's representation of witchery.
Yeah. He also pretty, like, he very much wants it to adhere to natural order. So it's none of the, like, we're above nature kind of thing. In fact, one of my favorite aspects of it is the fact that he does have one witch, Weatherwax, obviously, powerful enough to overcome nature, and she submits to nature on purpose. out of principle. Like, she has multiple times in her books where she does something that the laws of nature dictate you can't do, and then later she'll submit herself to the consequences of that because she should.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that we keep it in the laws of nature.
Mm-hmm.
But
What are some other magic systems out there could throw around?
Yeah, because we did Pratchett, we did Harry Potter,
I
we
like
touched
Dunes.
on the Lord of the Rings.
Dune? Oh,
Dune's not-
Dune's
Does
very
that have a magic
religious.
system?
Yeah,
It's
it
just-
does. It has the Bene Gesserit.
That's
And
just
not-
religion.
It's just yeah, it's not necessarily.
No, they do magic because part of the Bene Gesserit is like a lot of them are kind of steering away from their religious roots, like in how they're trying not to serve Paul, trying to manipulate. Like, it's a cool setup because it is a very religiously based magic, and they're trying to defy it, and the fate is winning.
It's been a bit since I've actually read it, but I remember it being very, like, yeah, it didn't really feel like magic. Like,
Well,
even
it
like
was-
the
that's
voices
partially
that
how
they
well
would
it was
use.
built.
It
Yeah.
was
The
just
fact-
like,
It leans into prophecy and compulsion more than spells.
yeah, which didn't, yeah.
But speaking and people being forced to obey you is kind of magic. Especially since it's a learned skill.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
like I
people
said,
can be
it's
literal
but the
hypnotists.
cool setup.
Like that is a thing.
Rory's like, it's not
little.
magic.
Rory's like, it's not magic.
But I
Well,
mean, I was
I'm
kind
just
of on
saying-
his side.
No,
It's again
it's a
been a long
learned
time
voice.
since I've read it.
But their
A
main
long
magic,
time.
other than prophecy, is the learned voice. But
Yes.
the Bene Gesserit, it's all very mysterious. But like I said, my favorite aspect of that is that it does come from a higher power, and they are unable to defy it with all of their built-up power. Because they are trying to make the Kwisatz Haderach, or however you say that, Kwisatz Haderach, be
what?
somebody else. Their savior,
That
the
could
Lisan
not be
al-Gaib.
correct.
It was.
The way you
Ish.
said that could not be right.
No, it was ish, okay? I'm a Google.
There's no chance.
I thought it was the. Yeah, it's been
He's-
forever since I've read the books.
Kwisatz Haderach.
Lucia, I'm talking about your pronunciation.
Yeah, I said it wrong, okay? How to say.
No, you didn't. You said got it pretty much right.
No, I said ish.
Ish excuses
How
all
to
sorts of things.
pronounce. One sec. Give me a second.
We are looking at how to pronounce
What are you
this
playing?
phrase. Meaning or translated literally as
Where did it say that?
beginning of the day.
What is that?
Kwisatz Haderach.
I was
You
Yeah,
are
close enough.
so
sound-
wrong.
Kwisatz
Close
Haderach.
enough.
There we go.
Close enough.
Rory sounded better saying it. I'm not gonna
Whatever.
try.
I'm not gonna say crap. Okay, Lisan al-Gaib, I'll say that. But the fact that they're trying to defy it and they can't, I think is a good system.
I wouldn't have thought of that as a magic system. I thought it was
Oh,
like more
it is.
religious, but I guess we were kind of bringing Moses under the head of magic, so
Wheel
maybe I
of
can't
Time?
fight this. Wheel of Time had other issues.
Yeah, but a cool magic system.
Not the
Um,
show, by the
No,
way.
don't touch the show. I didn't like the books either. I quit like halfway through book 4.
I think I read 9. They were thick,
Yeah.
and I was bored.
Anywho, if you don't
I don't
have
recommend
any
this
others
approach to
immediately
literature.
coming to mind,
Chronicles of
I feel like-
Narnia magic system.
Here's the thing, no people really cast any spells except the White Witch in that. He actually
Bene
does
Gesserit aren't
full-blown-
really casting spells.
I told you they talk and people obey them. And
Rory's-
they prophesy.
That's not a spell.
Not a
Except that
spell.
it's a trained skill that they do.
Prophecy is just, from up above. Like, I don't think
No,
that...
not if you can do it on command. But
That's not true. Couldn't be from up above. Still
Yeah.
on command.
And on command.
Anywho, I stand by it. What was I saying before?
Chronicles
What
of
were you saying?
Narnia.
Oh, Chronicles of Narnia goes the full Christian route.
Also, I don't think
Which is,
anyone's
like,
fussing about Chronicles of Narnia. I think everyone just reads it.
Only Aslan does any
The
like
White
quote unquote
Witch.
magic.
She's
yeah,
evil.
except evil sorceresses. White
Okay,
Witch
that's
and
actually
what's
another
her
question.
face from Silverchair.
Are we fine with evil people having magic, like, whatever the case?
See, that's
Because then we're like,
that's-
it's bad, guys.
it's like throwback to K-pop Demon Hunters when people were all freaking out over the Your Idol song. He's like, did you know it's demonic? I'm like, yes, because they're demons, and this is the bad guy song. But yeah, it's like when
However,
you've got an evil lady going bippity boppity boo, it's like, well, yeah, she's evil.
I did see people saying about the Your Idol song, like, this would have worked on me. Like, so.
Then again, I've also heard people say, looking at a picture of Earth from space, that the blue stuff must be sky. So we don't listen to what people say. People suck.
Well, Rory, any other
Anywho.
grand thoughts on magic and magic systems? Or should we summarize our findings?
Yeah, I think we might call it at this point. We hardly touched on the topics, all the topics you know about, but we'll have to call it.
Well, we touched on we started off with the idea, like at least I commented, that magic like can really vary depending on people's perceptions of what's hidden and what's unknown. And so you have like the concept of magic is generally pretty difficult to define and has shifted over the centuries with what people know. And as such, it's like when it comes to literature, more of an amalgamation of different aesthetics
Yeah.
of like kind of past cultural memories of ideas and things people used to do that people no longer do or no longer believe in. And so they're projected into a fictional world, imagined as working. And so you have this like layered amount of different things that have very, very different origins, from ancient paganism to Platonism, the Jewish Kabbalah, alchemy, to things that are nefarious, like Aleister Crowley's Church of Satan and like the occult revival of the Victorian period. So you've got a bajillion different things that it comes from. And then you have the different cultural discourses interpreting them later. So you've got like historiography on witches, people studying the history of witchcraft, which then informs these later movements too. And so you've got people like there was this lady in the early 20th century who came up with an idea that basically what the witches were in the early modern Europe was a secret society of pagan women and men around Europe meeting secretly in their witches' sabbaths with roots from ancient paganism, hiding from the church. And so that was actually a really big influence on the founder of Wicca, of the modern Wicca, like neo-pagan movement, where he was looking at what contemporary people were saying about witchcraft and then modeling his movement on that. So it's like this weird, like incestuous, evolving feedback loop where like you just have this cultural imaginary and cultural consciousness formed by scholarship, formed by folk movements. And so magic, like, okay, books with magic, that's a very broad category and should just be treated cautiously, like anything, on a case-by-case basis on how it actually
case by case, just like every other book
you.
you decide to read.
Yeah.
So yeah, Christians can read some magic books, just like Christians can read some books.
Yes.
It took us an hour to get to a very basic conclusion. Like, you can read some of them, guys. We're not going to tell you which ones exactly.
Just be generally smart, okay?
And be careful. Don't
Train good
inspire
judgment.
your child to really, really want to get into the occult.
No, don't do that. We
Try
don't
not to.
Don't
Do your
feed them
best to
stuff
not.
that inspires a romanticizing of bad stuff. But don't cut them off from any exposure to just imagined worlds where there's stuff categorized as magic, because that's actually not
just because it's given the label.
Don't curb imagination entirely. So I think we nailed it. Shall we go? Thanks for coming, Rory, with all your knowledge.
You were a pleasure to have.
I was
This was
maybe
a lot-
derailing some of our
A lot more
discussion
academic a
earlier,
discussion than would have happened without you. Thanks.